Welcome to Conversations with Sarah. I'm Sarah Reddan, creator of the SRTT Self-Care Club. Thank you for joining us today. You can find me on most social media platforms as SRTT Self-Care. But if you connect on Facebook, you can join me in my Facebook group for live recordings. Today, I am joined by Wendie, and we're going to have a bit of a chat about all things sort of spiritual, counsellor type of thing, I think. So hi, Wendie. Thank you for joining me.
Hi Sarah, and thank you very much for inviting me on, and hello to everybody watching live or on replay.
So we know each other through Facebook, and we've had some brilliant chats already, but for people who don't know you, would you like to introduce yourself?
So hi everybody, I'm Wendie. Professionally, I work as a counsellor and have been qualified for 20 odd years. I'm also an EMDR therapist, which is a fantastic therapy for trauma. And I find it particularly helpful with trauma. But in addition to that, I'm a trainee medium, which means that I've been in a mediumship circle for 3 years. I don't necessarily think that I'm very good at it, but I enjoy it. But people that know me well will describe me as very intuitive and probably more psychic.
And that's what really interested me, because as a qualified counsellor, I thought it was really fascinating sort of how you bridge the gap between the two worlds, because counselling is seen very much in one way, stereotypically, and spiritual work is seen in another way, stereotypically. And I personally am really interested in how we as practitioners merge and work with these different things, or work separately with these different things, and how it is for us working ethically and how it is for clients. And that's what made me reach out, and because you have such a beautiful energy as well, I know you're going to bring some wonderful things to us with us today, but also you talk about grief and you talk about bereavement, and you share some of your own journey and your own story. So there's lots that we're going to be kind of touching, and the reason I'm not framed today's conversation is because we're just going to see where it goes. The title will come at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're right. Now, when I work with clients, I tend to attract clients that come to me for grief, but particularly what they consider traumatic grief. So this may be where somebody has died suddenly, this may be through suicide, this may be a prolonged and painful death, it may be a child. And I kind of, when I'm working with that person, they don't know this about me. I don't say to them that I'm a trainee medium or anything like that, but I always invite in their loved one who they are grieving for, because my belief is that we transition, that we just kind of move on. I don't believe that death is kind of final in that way. So I invite their loved ones to come through if they wish to. They don't always, to help me to help my client, their loved one. And I find that the clients that I work with tend to open up about signs that they get. They open up about how they talk to their loved one all the time. And if I feel that they're receptive to it and they're in an emotional place that's okay to do it, we'll remove the traumaticness of the grief. That means that they're not constantly overwhelmed with haunting images and memories. So the grief reaction is a little bit more settled. And if they're receptive to it, I'll help them to be able to sense when their loved one is around them. I don't do it all the time because it's not right, but sometimes it is. And I just think it's a beautiful thing.
And I agree, that's what I'm sat with. And what I'm hearing is that with clients that are open to that way of working, it's something you can bring into the space that traditionally in counselling we wouldn't do.
Yeah, that's a no-no really in tradition.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think, like, from my experience of how I do therapy, being able to bring in these other tools when they're in the best interest of the client makes such a difference.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Because I think with grief, what I found anyway is that there can be a lot of negative messaging out there, particularly on social media, you know, where people consume a lot of information, is that it's very focused on the pain, it's very focused on the very difficult sides to grief, but nobody's really talking about what can come out of grief further on down the line. And there are some beautiful things that can come from an experience of grief, but I think you've got to consent. I think you've got to get to a point where you make a decision within yourself. So would that be okay if I just very briefly just shared my story a little?
Absolutely, that was my next question. Yeah,
Just
absolutely. Share whatever you're comfortable sharing with, however you wish to share it.
Yeah, and I think I just need to say as well that, as I mentioned to you, Sarah, my daughter is with me. I sensed that she was going to be here with me this morning. I can't kind of conjure her up. I can't say to Alexx, can you be with me? It's really about whether she, you know, it's kind of right for her to be here. So I know that she's here. So when I share my story, if it seems as though I'm being a little bit upbeat or a little bit positive, it's really because my daughter's energy is very bubbly. She's very sarcastic. She's very pushy. She's very funny. And like I said, I've got her energy around me, so she's kind of helping me as well today. So the story was, my daughter, I only have one child, her name was Alexx, and she unexpectedly passed away when she was 24. Now, when I say unexpectedly passed away, she had always been a very poorly child. She had some serious medical conditions, but she was not one to let her illnesses get her down. So she more than packed in tons of stuff into her 24 years. But when she passed away, I was struck by how beautiful it was. And I was struck by how grateful I was about how she'd passed away. So I know that may be quite triggering for people, that may be something people don't usually hear, and that's why I'm going to share it, is because she had just been to holiday in Croatia with her boyfriend and boyfriend's family, and she'd come back on the Thursday night. By the Monday, she was in hospital and she had to be put in an induced coma, which she didn't come out of. So in that short space of time, her illness clearly unravels very quickly. What I was very grateful about was the fact that she had come back from Croatia fine, and that she'd fell ill so that I could be with her. Because quite frankly, if anything had happened to her when she was in Croatia, I'm not really sure how I would have coped with that, but I was able to be with her. So when she was in her hospital bed, and she's just kind of saying to me that her boyfriend put headphones on her to listen to Katy Perry, she's kind of just saying to me, she wants to give a bit of a heads up to Katy Perry because she's still a super fan of Katy Perry. So she was aware in the coma that she could hear Katy Perry. But we as a family had to make a decision. And I was very, very aware in that moment that I needed to make the decision that was best for Alexx, and it could not involve my emotions. And I think that as a counsellor, that helped me. It helped me to be able to put my feelings to one side and make sure that we was doing what was best for her, but that I was also understanding correctly that she was saying to me, it is my time to go. And this is what I want to happen. So because I needed to make sure this was 100% correct, what I was picking up, I had a friend who was very, very gifted medium, and I actually contacted her and said, would you mind just checking in with Alexx and making sure that what I'm picking up is correct? And she confirmed to me that yes, that was correct, that Alexx it was her decision, and she was now ready to go on to her next journey. So she very peacefully and beautifully, passed away. But since then, she has been around me a great deal. And I think one of the things that I kind of want people to understand really is that when I was in the deep depths of my grieving, particularly the first year or two, it was, I didn't really realize I was feeling my daughter around, because it just felt like grief. But as my grief softened a little bit, I became aware of kind of my daughter's presence. And for anybody out there, your grief does need to be a little bit further on in your grieving journey.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that can happen, is that as you move through your grieving journey, that you are more able to kind of sense or feel when your loved one has come around you. And they don't come around all the time. Alexx doesn't come around that often now, because going back a few years ago, she doesn't come around so often. But when she does come around, I know that it's her, because I can feel her energy. That is her. It's not my energy.
Yeah. So how does that feel for you? How is that different?
Well, to start with, it took a little bit of time to notice the difference, because originally I would just be out walking on my own and I'd be hit by an overwhelmingness of emotion. And I would think to myself, oh, crikey, I've been triggered. But actually it wasn't. It was that Alexx had come close in that moment. So once I understood that, I don't now get so overwhelmed. I can just feel something kind of, I don't necessarily feel her as in where she's standing, but I definitely just get an influence of her personality. So if I start to become more bubbly, more excited, a little bit manic, if I become a little bit more exaggerated. So it goes beyond my normal personality. My normal personality is I'm quite calm and I'm
You're
quiet.
very calm. Like my
Yeah.
experience of you,
Yeah.
like through our connections on
Yeah.
Facebook, is you're very calm, you're very soothing.
Mm.
Still waters is the image that I
Yeah.
have, that serenity,
Yeah.
kind of space of just, yeah, a hug of calmness.
But my daughter's completely the opposite.
Wow.
She's nothing other than, she's just really full on. I mean, she was, a feeling of she couldn't wait for today, the idea of helping me with this today.
That's beautiful. And do you hear her, or is it all sense, or
I
is it like
hear
a
her.
visual you hear?
Well, I can hear a voice, but it's in my mind. I don't hear it through my ears. Not many people do, but it is through my mind. Yeah. But I think it's about just trusting what you're getting, because people think you can be not all there, don't they?
Yeah, and I think, and I don't know about you, but when we've had formal training in mental health, there is that kind of part of, oh, like, is this psychosis? Not that as counsellors we diagnose these things, but we have awareness as we go through our training, we learn stuff. And yeah, I mean, I know and I don't know what I'm going to share, but as I go, because I never know what I'm going to share, like as I'm going into a more spiritual deepening of my own spiritual exploration, I'm sharing things like that. And even when I started to talk about crystals and energy healing, there was always a part of me that judged me as sounding just a bit nuts. Like this sounds a little bit kind of like losing grasp of reality.
Yeah.
But the more I'm okay with it, the deeper I'm getting into my own sense of emotion, my own feeling around things. And often when I'm talking, like in my groups or on the podcast, sometimes I don't have the words for things. They are feelings. They
Yeah.
are absolute senses of stuff. And as you're saying, like the more you connect with it, the more you connect with it.
Yeah, it is a feeling. It is definitely more feeling based. But if you think about when people are struggling with their grief and they're going through, the really painful stuff, you can't feel, because all you feel is pain.
Yeah.
Don't you? So, I think it's a bit of a tricky balance. I'm not here to, of course, tell anybody how to grieve, but I do know that there are some wonderful things beyond kind of initial painful
Yeah.
grieving.
So I have a question for me, and I'm not quite sure where it's going. So let's see. So, like, I know one of the things that when we talked about today, it was like about actually being able to bring some of the fun in. And when you say grief, you don't expect fun.
No.
And I guess there's part of me that through my own process of grief, there comes a point where it isn't all encompassing. And maybe you feel guilty about like enjoying life and moving forward in your own happiness and stuff like that. And I guess the question, because I have my thoughts about it, so the question is, what would you say to people who are at that stage where they're ready to step out of the heaviness that comes with bereavement, with grief, and allow themselves that, like, they want to allow themselves that space for the fun, for the good stuff, but are worried about what other people, because there is a lot, I think, when you're going through the grieving process, people have ideas about how you're supposed to grieve.
Absolutely.
And if you're not doing it right by somebody else's expectation, it's hard to feel supported as you're going through stuff. I hope what I'm trying to say is making sense, because I know that I'm not actually saying a question, I'm saying lots of statements. But what I'm wondering is, what from your perspective would you say to somebody at that stage to help them with that transition? That's the question.
I think it's just having a little bit of an understanding of what life may be like for them beyond that transition. So, for example, once the heaviness of the grief isn't there, your mind has more access to the positive memories of you with your loved one. And if you think about a traumatized brain, when you're very overwhelmed with your grief, it will block a lot of those memories out. But you still have memories, positive memories, but your brain's not able to give you access to all of your positive memories. So that's one thing. I think once you go beyond that transition, you get more access to wonderful kind of memories. But the other thing is really about living your life almost not through the person that's died, because that still creates a permanent kind of attachment to the grief, but kind of making the most of life. And at the end of the day, we are all here to live. We are not here on this journey to suffer throughout all of our life. That is not what it's about.
Yeah.
Or we are here to transition ourselves. We are here to evolve. We are here to find meaning, find purpose, find joy, find fun in life as well. And that's what our loved ones want for us as well. So our loved ones, when they transition, my understanding is that they continue to evolve. So Alexx, she's told me some things that she's done. She's a busy bee, but she's also spiritually continues to evolve. That's why she's not around a great deal. And I know that, you know, when a person transitions over, that if the person here is chronically in the depths of grief for years and years and years, it affects the person in the spirit world. Not in a, you know, it's just an upsetting thing, you know.
In like a vibrational kind of sense.
Our loved ones don't want to see us upset, do they, all the time? They understand that we're upset. They're upset when they first transition over as well. They have to go through their own grieving process as well, but they've got a slightly different perspective, because they also can see our potential. They can see what our potential is if we can move through our own grief, and that's what they want for us. It's only love.
And I'm sort of where I'm at with it on my journey is that similar kind of message, in that I feel like that's the greatest thing that we can do, because when someone passes away, we've got all this love that we don't know what to do with. Like, it's all just there, and it was supposed to go somewhere and it hasn't. So put that out into the world, put that out into the universe, live your life in a way that is joyful, where you can, because to me that honors the memory of the person that's passed. Like, so you're that love gets to go out into the universe and be shared.
Absolutely. You just have to be careful. One of the things that I've kind of had to wrestle with a little bit is because you know, I don't have any of the children. I'm not going to have any of the children. Actually, when my daughter died, I went straight into the menopause, so there was definitely no possibility.
A lot of change.
But you know, I had to find purpose. I had to find a meaning. I had to find something to be able to live life and to enjoy it. And I think sometimes if you're not careful, we can kind of become so busy, distract ourselves, which is the pattern I keep falling into, which is why I've stepped back a little bit from social media, because I fell back into the pattern of busyness. But actually just need to step back and just review your life a little bit, make sure that you are living it. You're not working too hard. You're not working every hour that there is, that you are living as well.
Because and that's the thing, isn't it? Living the life, living your life the way you want to live it, with purpose. Because I don't talk to people that have passed on. I haven't had people that I love that have passed give me messages, or maybe I have, and I just don't know that it. But I genuinely believe that that's what they want to see. They want to see you, if they're there watching. Like, no one wants to feel that they're the reason that somebody else stops living their life and just lives under the cloud of the heaviness of the grief. I imagine that they want to see you having fun, succeeding, doing the things that bring you joy, because that's what they would have wanted in life, surely.
Absolutely. And it is about, isn't it, that you do have to grieve, like they have to grieve. And when it happened with Alexx, one of the things that I became very aware of was that people around me, I just felt that they thought, oh, don't really know how to help Wendie with this one. And is she going to go off the rails? And I was aware of that, but I was also aware that, quite frankly, I could do whatever I wanted, because people were kind of like, oh, you know, should she be doing this? Should she not? So actually what happened is that when I was looking at meaning and purpose for me, to try and help other people, I guess, was where I started from. I realised that I had a very busy counselling practice where I would I had a beautiful office. I thought to myself, well, I need more time. If I'm going to set up a charity or something, which was my thinking at the time, I need time to do that. So how can I do it? So I thought, okay, well, if I stop working face to face, and this is 5 years ago now. So if I stop working face to face and work solely online, I can save myself 20 hours a month on travel, and I don't pay rent on an office, so I don't need to work so many hours. So I was so dead set on this idea, had no fear. It never entered my mind. This is a bit crazy, Wendie, you know, you don't do this sort of thing. So I spoke to my supervisor and I gave all my clients 3 months notice about this transition. No worries whatsoever. But what happened overnight, all my clients finished.
Oh, wow.
So all my clients just ended. So I must have thought to myself that, you know, with my ego, I must have thought, oh, you know, a few will just continue working online, but they didn't. They all just said, okay, you know, thanks very much.
Thanks a lot. Yeah. See you later.
So all of a sudden, I had no, it was becoming clear I had no clients.
Yeah.
So I thought, oh, now what should I do? Again, I had no worry. It's one of the beautifulness sometimes of grief is that you just don't care like you used to.
No, because the worst imaginable has happened. So what else?
Yeah,
like, really, what else can the world throw at me?
Exactly.
Like, I've survived this. So actually, I'm pretty sure I can get through anything. Bring it on, world.
That's amazing, isn't it? To have that. So I thought, right, okay. So I've got no clients, I've got no practice. The obvious thing to me was, okay, I'll sell my house, because now I've got no practice. I can take a year off.
I like the way you say the obvious thing. Of course, Wendie, that's the most obvious thing. Sell your house, uproot, and just...
That was it. But that is what I thought. I thought, wow, all my practice has come to an end. And I saw it in a positive way.
But you wanted that space, so you got that space.
So all of a sudden I've got this thing where, crikey, I could actually take some real time out. So I sold my house. I didn't have much, but I had enough for like a year. And I don't live with my partner, although we've been together a very long time, but he lives up north and I live in the Midlands. So he's always been very supportive of me. He's used to me being a bit weird and wacky. And I said to my partner, I'm going to go off to India because I need some time on my own. I need time to do some grieving. And this isn't everybody's way of doing it. But for me, I didn't want counselling. I didn't want any type of therapy. I didn't want to talk to people. I didn't want any of that. I just knew in my heart that I needed to be on my own and I needed to face my feelings without distraction. And India was a place that I'd fell in love with. I've never done anything like that in my life, by the way. I'm no adventurous person or adrenaline junkie. I just needed time away. And in India, where I was, the internet was shocking, so I couldn't kind of distracted with Netflix, because that's what I would have done at home. I would have, you know, done loads of housework. I would have watched loads of films. I would have found things to keep me busy.
Like you said, using that busyness. And that's what so many people do to distract from feeling any kind of emotion that they don't want to feel, or dealing with any kind of part of life that they don't want to be dealing with, is just get immersed in that busyness. Because if you're busy, then you can't possibly be dealing with things. And for some people, that's what you need to do to be safe. Absolutely. But like you said, there comes a point, doesn't there? There comes a point where if you want to move through it, you've got to be with it.
And do you would you agree, Sarah, maybe as therapists, maybe we have more resilience, we certainly have the understanding about that, don't we? We're less fearful of our emotions. They might not feel nice, to know that really at some point we need to face them, whereas maybe somebody else may not know how to do that.
Yeah, I think it's that understanding, isn't it? And the process of, 'cause like for me, like my big bereavement happened before I was qualified, before I did my training. It's actually part of my story into becoming a therapist. But with like the big courses, you have to do personal therapy. You have to spend so much time reflecting on your own stuff that it becomes habitual. Like it is now. I'm such a different person.
Yeah.
Like, and I think, part of my resilience comes from the life experiences that I've had. But also in there is, like you say, as a therapist, you kind of just gain this, or anyone I think that really, really is into this sort of stuff, you gain a level of understanding about yourself. And that does not mean that you always do things perfectly correctly from your adult state at all. I definitely don't always do things correctly, in that, good space of adultness. But I notice now when I'm not, and I'm able to center and bring myself back and take accountability and sit with how it is to be me in that moment, and what it is that's going on, and what I'm needing, and what's I'm thinking of different interactions, like when we're in relationship with other people. It is that, that life experience, that self-reflection that you have and develop more of going through the training to be a therapist, because there's so much. And I would say not every therapist, because I know other therapists that I've met along my way that don't necessarily have those skills and capabilities. But it is, I think, part of the learning that if you really embody it, you kind of have no choice but to sit with yourself, because you're like, oh, I'm doing the thing, or like you say, there's a trigger there. I'm falling into some unhealthy patterns. I need to be with myself and work out what's going on here.
Yeah, and it certainly was times in India that were very, very, very tough. But do you know what? Nobody said to me, should you really be doing that? And I knew that nobody would say to me, Wendie, that's crazy, because nobody knew how to help me. And I knew that. So I also knew that I kind of had got permission within myself that it was okay to do this. Maybe, to somebody else that was quite a crazy thing to do, to sell your house. Then,
but it was
India.
It was right for you.
It was right for me. But then that wasn't the end of the story. So bear in mind that I've got this beautiful ending with my daughter. I then come to this realization I need purpose and meaning. So then, I'm going to become working online, and that didn't work, and practice folded, end up selling my house so I can take a year off work. And this is 100% the truth. I'm not embellishing this in any way. But my dad, bless him, I would probably see him once a year. My dad's he's like a recluse. So my relationship with my dad is not a typical relationship daughter kind of situation. So to see him once a year, maybe for 20 minutes. Had no idea about my life, my dad's life really. My dad really showed no interest in my life. He'd never been round to my home or anything, even though he lived local. And one day he phoned me out of the blue, never phoned me. I'd been living away from home, 20 odd years, and he'd never phoned me. He phoned me and he said, Wendie, I've been thinking about this for 2 to 3 years. I'm going to gift you my cottage.
Wow.
So, because I want you to be mortgage free, and I want you just to be in a position where you can just work part-time if you want to. So I now live in this beautiful cottage that's dated back to about 1800, and my dad's kind of renovated it and so on. And I had no idea no idea that was coming at all. So I followed my heart all the way through, sold the house, went off to India to do some healing, and then this phone call came out of the blue. How amazing is that?
And it just shows, doesn't it, when you just kind of, I want to say follow intuition, but I don't even know if that's entirely what I mean. When you just trust,
Yeah,
when you just trust that it's going to work out, and you just
yeah.
go with what your soul is calling you to do.
At that moment, yeah, and just have that courage just to take those steps, because I would never have made those changes in normal life. Never. I'd have been panic stricken about money and how will I pay my bills and what happens if I sell my house. I won't be able to get another one. But I didn't have any of that. So it allowed me to just go with what I really felt I needed to do. And I just followed it.
And it's so different, isn't it? Because that's kind of where I'm at with my journey now, and the way the business is and the things that I'm doing. I'm just going with it. I have the moments of what I call inspirations, and then I'm like, oh, okay, so this is what's happening next, and I'm just going with it. And that doesn't mean that everything in life is always perfect. There is stuff going on, stuff happens, things
Yeah.
don't work out the way in which like I hope they would, or life occurs.
Yeah.
But still, I have this calm sense that it's all okay, and it's all going how it needs to be.
Yeah.
And that's so different for me 15 years ago. Me 15 years ago would worry about every single scenario so that I was prepared.
Oh, of course.
Because if I, I knew that I could deal with life, but if something bad was happening, my coping strategy was to plan eventualities so that if it happened, then it would be okay. Because
Yeah.
in my mind, that kept me calm.
Yes.
What I know now is what it actually did is I just was always stressed. It was a way of managing. It was a way of managing the stress. And it's
Yeah.
such a different energy when you just like, well, we had the conversation beforehand. What will be, whatever happens, happens. And it is, and it's like, it's so calm, and it's so like peaceful and loving and so different. And it like, I know, because I know you do meditation as well. Do you think meditation has helped you with that?
Well, when I was in India, I was meditating sometimes 3-4 times a day. So I really got into my meditation there, and I did a lot of walk and talk. So, talking to myself, did a lot of walking. So I think both of those helped as
Yeah.
well as time out. But yeah, just slowing down, giving yourself time and space without any distractions. It's the only way you can really tune in to
Yeah.
the only way you hear your intuition is when things are quiet,
Mm.
because
And
it's a
that's it, isn't it?
quiet voice.
Being with yourself and being able to be with life as it is in
Yeah.
that moment. Just, yeah, being in that moment. And I've noticed the more I've got like this, the less sense of time I have in the in the wider world. And that brings me to like, I think we're way over time. But I'm kind of happy if there's more you want to share, that to go with whatever, because I want you to have said everything that you want to say about your story and share everything that you want to share. So is there anything more you'd like to share?
I think the only thing that I kind of wanted to share, just one more thing, is that again, I don't think this is really known a great deal. But for anybody out there, and I apologize now because I'm just going to say it's a bit of a trigger, anybody out there that has experienced the death of a child, or have experienced where their child has drawn breath or hasn't drawn breath, or has been here for a few hours or a few days, they actually become part of your, they are around you. They are classed as being another one of your higher selves. So they are around you. And again, I just kind of want people to know that it's just a beautiful, beautiful thing, and they're okay. They're absolutely okay, and they're safe, and they're fine, and they're healthy. They have no pain. It's just a beautiful thing.
Thank you, Wendie. Thank you so much for sharing that.
An absolute pleasure.
And thank you for coming on. I mean, I could talk to you all day, and I'm sure you'll come back and talk with me another time, because I feel like there's so many things we could have conversations about.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And thank you to those that have listened. I hope that you have enjoyed today's episode. I'll be back next Wednesday with a new guest. Until then, stay curious and be kind to yourself.